What up, Hyperchange? Welcome to another episode of the Hyper Chat. I've got the infamous Ross Gerber here with me today. We're going to be talking about Tesla, all sorts of stuff, tech companies, what you think for young investors. Really excited to have you on. Thanks for coming, Ross.
My pleasure. Great to have you out here, too.
So for the few people who don't know who you are, maybe you could give us your background on how you ended up here in LA managing money and investing.
Well, I was born and raised here, so this is definitely my hood right here, actually, in West LA, Santa Monica. When I was a kid, my family has been involved with the stock market for a couple generations, starting with my great-grandfather, actually, Max Fern, who I named my kid after. But so my mom taught me about stocks as a kid, and I didn't like working that much. So I worked at a pizza place. I was delivering pizzas and stuff, and my mom was like, I had cash, because you make this cash, and mom was like, you got to save it and invest it. And so I did that, and I bought Disney. My mom's like, buy Disney, and you get the certificates, and they had Mickey Mouse on it. It was really cool.
Oh, really? And, you had the stocks?
Yeah, you didn't have brokerage firms. You didn't have like Robinhood, where you never even see anything. You actually got a certificate and stuff. And this thing went up. And my mom would show me in the paper, and I'd be like, oh, you made more money. And then it went, I think it split 3 for 1. Back in the old days, they split stocks. Like now, stock prices are like 1,752.
Yeah.
It's like ridiculous, I'll buy you 4 shares today, And that was a big treat. That's a lot of money, right? And so back then, Disney splits 3 for 1. It was in the 80s, and I was sold. I was like, this is way better than working, because I had to like drive around and deliver pizzas So when I wanted to be a musician, I realized I was going to be poor for sure, and that was very unpalatable to me. I was raised in a pretty well-off world in the 80s in West LA. Actually, extremely ridiculous world. So there was no way I wanted to live that way, and I wasn't inheriting any fortune. So that was another problem. I grew up with people who were inheriting fortunes, and I wasn't getting anything. So I had to figure out a better way, and investing was the way, and especially in technology. So it started with Disney and Apple, and when I got through college and I started working in the music industry, I hated it, and it was a horrible thing. And had some bad experiences really quickly and said, I got to do something else. And so I got into the investment business because it was the early 90s and technology was beginning to boom. And one of the things I realized was, as a musician, we went from analog to digital, and it was a huge, huge plus. So like from recording, from every level of music, like what we do today is like insanely cool. Like you literally sing. Even you can edit each word of your song. I mean, it's like crazy how these albums are made today, where it was like Jimi Hendrix was like cutting tapes and taping it together, right? So the music industry didn't get it back then, and I go, I'm going to get in the investment business, and I got hired, and I got into the investment business in '94, and it was just amazing. So fortunately for me, everything I did, worked really well right at the beginning of my career. Unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of money at the time. I had no money. So, relatively, I was making people a lot more money than I was making myself. But I was able to build my career very quickly. And so I've been in the investment business, and one of my goals in life is to help as many young people save and invest their money in the future as possible. And that's why I'm wealthy today. So I have everything in the world that I want. I don't really want or care for anything. I don't really need to be richer. I don't actually care about that much. I think that overthought about like spending money is actually bad, So it's like, I have reasonable expectations of what I want out of my life. I don't need like a yacht. I don't like those things really. Actually, I don't.
You just got your Model 3. That's all you need, right?
I actually downsized from my Maserati to my Model 3, and I'm super happy about it. I'm saving so much money on that, not just on gas, but just on the payment too. And the car is great, which is why we're here, is to talk about the future in technology, and that's what my career is about. So I've done that in building portfolios and managing people's money. Gerber Kawasaki.
Yeah, you founded a firm, right?
Yeah.
Gerber Kawasaki, which is now you run.
Yeah, so I worked my way up and started running and kind of own part of another firm until the financial crisis. And then when the financial crisis happened, I was like, change everything, go digital, virtual everything, use the internet. Mm-hmm. We were the first firm on Facebook. We were the first people. We were, got in trouble. I still get in trouble constantly in the industry. Pushing what it's not because we're doing anything wrong. It's like there was no rules in 1933 that had anything to do with the internet.
Twitter,
right. So they're still working on that, blueprint actually. That like SEC works on a blueprint based off, 1933.
Yeah, and I feel like that's one of the most underappreciated things about the investing world is how much has changed with the Twitter, YouTube universe. Like this is less than a decade old. And I think it's totally changed the media landscape, the financial media landscape. And I think you guys have been really smart in that becoming sort of like an influencer, putting yourself out there on Twitter seems like a great strategy for your business, I'm assuming.
Yeah. I mean, it's been great and horrible. And but overall, net, what it did and what the internet does as a whole is it allows anybody the freedom to be as big as they want to be, where there were always companies that had barriers to entry, like in the music industry. If you wanted to move up, right now, you have 2 companies that book every venue in the world, basically. Mm-hmm. And if you don't deal with Live Nation or AEG, forget it. You're not playing anywhere. And that's the barrier to entry. And with the internet, you don't have that. So musicians have gone online and they're on YouTube and they're building huge careers. And then Live Nation's calling them, begging Chance the Rapper with millions of dollars to come play their venues because of the internet.
Yeah.
But Chance the Rapper might never have been heard in the system before, just like you or me. And that's what I realized 10 years ago when we were starting the firm, was that we could leverage technology like a podcast or in this case it was the internet or just the web to be able to get to everybody and tell them the message, hey, save and invest your money. Like if you're young, that gives you the best chance of having a great future.
Yeah, you have the best asset in the world that even Warren Buffett can't buy. Time.
I know. I can't buy it either, know. And I'm telling you, my wife says this, and I think I love saying it. It's youth is wasted on the young. Okay, it's just youth is wasted on the young. Now you can think about this all day long, and I had such a good youth, in mostly my 30s. My 20s I worked a lot my whole career, but like my 20s I had to get somewhere quick. I was like I got to get out of poverty as quickly as possible, and then in my 30s I really started enjoying that and. Fortunately, I didn't get married till I was in my 40s, so I was able to be single for a long time, and it was great, and it was a lot of fun. And now I have a great family, and that's great. And so if you don't save and invest when you're 25, that time just goes. It's gone, and yet I barely remember most of it, because it was so long ago. And I'm like, thank God I did all that.
Mm-hmm. And so moving on to you built your firm on using technology and you also invest in technology. Right. So that's why I brought you on, because I want to talk about Tesla, other tech companies you're interested in, but let's start with Tesla. So at a high level, I'm just curious, just take a step back. What is your thesis on Tesla? Or first of all, do you own some? Do your clients own some?
Oh, yeah. No, we own Tesla, and I've owned it since 2012 when I first saw the Model S. Because, I'm actually a big car guy. I don't, not per se like taking them apart and putting it together, but like I love driving cars, especially fast and good cars, not just showy cars. And I like ICE cars. I'm not per se an anti-ICE guy, but climate obviously came into the picture, and EVs were always golf carts, so I didn't really want one. And when the Model S came out, we went and took it out, and I said, "Oh God, this is incredible, right?" And there was no vision at that time of like what autopilot would be and all this kind of stuff. It was just an EV. Mm-hmm. But I saw a lot of advantages to EV, and I thought Tesla had a brand, which is another lesson I learned early on as an investor, is the value of a brand, and if you have a brand value like Tesla has in the public. So there's 2 Teslas. There's like Tesla in the public and there's Tesla in the media. And so what people who actually interface with Tesla love Tesla, and the brand, like they sell a surfboard and it was like sold out in like a minute.
Yeah, I got one.
Oh, you got one?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Or someone sent it to me.
They sold flamethrowers, a boring company did, and
Yeah,
people
got
buy
those
it
too.
because Elon is kind of a genius when it comes to selling stuff. And so Tesla today is 50 times more exciting than Tesla when we first started, because it's become not an EV story. It's become a big data, AI, transportation, autonomous driving story. That the part about it that blows my mind is the collection of data from the vehicles, and the master plan of every vehicle is another data. So it's like Google, where somebody had to map the internet, and everybody go, oh, that's impossible, and Google did it.
Yep.
And so it's kind of like web crawlers. He's putting out all these web crawlers, but it's like real life driving. And I don't believe a computer can learn how to drive in real life. So I don't think LiDAR and all that stuff's going to work. Like Google wants to solve it as a programming solution. I don't think that's going to work, because I think humans are horribly irrational. And so driving is an amazing beauty of many, many irrational people somehow only crashing a little.
Yeah. Although I would argue to me, that's the biggest misconception. There's like 1 million people dying from auto accidents each year.
Oh, I know.
And and then there's one crash on autopilot, and then that gets all the attention. And, that to me is what I really want to bring the conversation to, is how many people are driving drunk, high,
right,
distracted? How many millions of people are we going to let die without, and Tesla's actually trying to solve this problem, and people give them so much hate. Like, it's baffling to me.
Well, I think that technology has to walk a tough line. Just like when the space shuttle exploded, when I was a kid and I watched teachers and nice people burn up live on television, the entire nation, as a kid. Wow. Okay. The space program had to advance, and they were shooting these shuttles off. And you look at the computers they used in the 80s to fly these missions, it's unbelievable, right? Like, it's like unbelievable compared to the technology today. And the space shuttle exploded on live television while every kid was out of school specifically to watch the space shuttle, because a teacher was put on the space shuttle for the first time. You're
Wow.
looking at me like you don't know this.
No, I mean, I wasn't alive. I don't know.
No, but it's like history, dude. It's like there's a couple of Netflix shows about like the space shuttle programs and stuff. Oh my God. It was horrible.
Yeah, it's just hard to imagine that reality of watching the thing blow up on
live TV. But you don't
TV.
stop the space shuttle. You don't this is the cost of innovation. But you're absolutely right that we're going to focus on that, because that was like this big thing that somebody died on autopilot. But what we're not going to focus on is the 60,000 people that die on the road here every year, because it's so commonplace. It's literally today, on the way home that I drive, it's the highest risk activity that I do. Okay? All of us. Like I go on a plane, and I kind of, when I leave my kids, I kind of am like, you always kind of like, I say a little prayer, I'm like, I want to get home again and see my kids, because, I love them and I want them to have a dad or whatever. But that's actually really safe. Why? Autopilot. There's no pilots flying planes anymore. They don't fly the planes. Hello, okay? You just got on a thing that flew up in the air 40,000 feet, and it does it all on its own. And we do this 25,000 times a day. And not an accident. When was the last accident? I don't know.
The 737?
No, that's international. I'm saying in America, there used to be plane crashes like every year. It's like shark attacks. Somebody got eaten at Conopoli Beach the other day.
Wow.
And I was like, kids, don't worry. The sharks don't usually eat people at good tourist beaches often. And it's like 500 people a year die from shark attacks, but not 500 Americans a year on planes. Okay.
But everybody's scared of planes. And that's kind of one of...
Well, they're scared of it, but they're all going on autopilot the whole time. Yeah. And yet they're saying, stop Tesla because somebody died on autopilot. NTSB, these crazy people are testing technology on our roads that we might hurt somebody, and it's absurd.
Yeah, and that's what really concerns me is that what the FUD, for lack of a better term, or just people focusing on this without looking at the data will really cause a hindrance to self-driving technology going into the mainstream. Like that's what I see as the biggest roadblock and barrier.
Right, but you don't lead people by letting the people decide. The people, might kick and scream their way into surgeries, and be like, oh, I don't believe in these new surgeries and new, cancer treatments, and they die. That's how Steve Jobs died. Oh, I don't believe in this. I'm going to eat special roots and that'll cure my cancer, and then he's dead. He's a smart guy. So you gotta say this is the way the world's going, and that's the way the world's going. That's why China doesn't have this problem. Nobody's deciding in China. The China say, we're putting EVs on the road. You don't get a nice car.
Yeah. And that's what's crazy. China has like an equivalent subsidy of like 10 to 15. I mean, they're ramping these down, but like $10,000 to $15,000 per electric vehicle it equates to. It's like they're not doing it to feel good and be green. They're doing it because they realize this is the future and we need to
clean up our economy. This future.
Yeah, and they want to make money on it.
They own 5% of Tesla, and in fact, the fact that Tesla is growing so fast in China is making the Chinese officials very happy. They need to create jobs for people, and they need an industry that's going to be growth, and they much rather make their own cars for EVs. They've got BYD and they've got Geely, which are the two best actual EV makers in the world besides Tesla, and now they've got Tesla. So, while America kind of like pushes and attacks Tesla, what they're missing is the Chinese are embracing them. And the Chinese are perfectly happy with an EV future because they can't breathe every day. So it's really simple in Beijing. You can't breathe every day.
Yeah, I actually checked my phone today, and it said New York air quality was like not perfect. Or there was something on my iPhone that I'd never seen. It was like air quality bad if you're sensitive.
LA used
and I was
to be
like,
what?
This.
Yeah, LA used
That's
to have
incredible.
this problem. When I was a kid, it was like the smog problem, and we used to skateboard like downtown, and you'd like come home and be like, coughing, and then they made all these clean air rules here in California, and it works. It's not like it doesn't work. I mean, like if we just say, okay, everybody's got to get EVs, and that's what the Chinese are actually doing. You can spin it, or China is saying, everybody, if you want to drive around Beijing, you have to buy an EV, and there's no other way, and I think what's happening in Europe too, where it's just the incentives are so weighed in this thing. And let me tell you, if the Democrats win in a year and a half, we're going green too, United States. So this departure under the Bush administration, it's like I was talking about Bush, how bad Bush was, and I hated him, and then like Trump came around and like took us to a whole new low. So the Trump administration, and what they're doing to the environment, will be reversed immediately when the Democrats win, and we're going to go all green. We're going to go solar, and that's what needs to be done. And solar makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And so you own a Model 3, right?
Yeah.
So one of the biggest things I'm curious about is the autopilot. Do you use that a lot?
Every day.
So how fast is that getting better? Like, have you noticed that?
Well, there's two autopilots now. There's Navigate on autopilot and regular autopilot. And I actually use regular autopilot.
You don't do the lane change.
I don't do Navigate on autopilot because I actually do think it drives worse than the regular autopilot because they're testing on it. And so like it does things that I don't like as much because it's trying to do things.
Yeah,
so
it's not perfect
so you can
yet.
So you have to like monitor it more, and it's like it's a little jankier, I guess is the way to say it. So regular autopilot works great. And so that's what I use, and I just use the turn thing to turn, to change lanes. Like I would confirm the lane change. I'm not letting it change lanes for me yet because LA is super difficult, man.
Yeah, this is like the hardest place to
changing lanes in
navigate.
LA is way. It is like Call of Duty. You're just gotta like survive. You got to get into this lane. I do crazy
you convinced
crap
Elon
to get
for the
into
LA.
lanes.
What was that? They're beyond Mad Max mode. They're
Yeah.
like LA traffic mode at the autonomy day.
No,
you were saying
I'm
that?
set on Mad Max, and that's what's getting better. Which I test autopilot because I want to see how good it is, and obviously I'm paying attention, and I'm not going to like crash into a truck. and I'm not going to drive 75 and see if the brakes work. You know what I mean? Like the other day that happened, and it's like I took over. You know, I'm not going to like play an 80 mile per hour game. You know, but the autopilot drives amazingly well. I use it every day. It's changing lanes much better, especially in the more difficult situations where the speeds are much different, where you're moving fast and they're stopped, or you're stopped and they're moving fast and you got to get over.
Yeah.
You know, these are very hard maneuvers and people are moving in many directions. So a lot of that has to be with FSD. You know, you were in the car with me. We are actually like literally innovators who got in the full self-driving
You got the
Tesla.
first demo.
001. Gally came and found me because I had number one.
I was too.
And
honestly, Tesla, come on.
And he was like,
I can't
what the
believe
hell,
that
Ross?
Gerber got number one.
I know. I was number one.
Unbelievable.
I'm the first person in the world to have ever gone in a full self-driving Tesla with you. And it was only because you were so enterprising that you went and found me, because I was so busy trying to talk to Elon and find him, you know, or whatever. And you're like, no, let's get in the car. So we get in this car. And so the hardware update has to happen for this to work. So the crazy thing that like I've been trying to get Tesla to do is they're not going to advertise because Elon doesn't want to spend money on it, which I totally get. But I was like, you need to make videos and post them about like what is really happening. So when you buy a new Tesla today, you're getting the new hardware in your car, and you buy full self-driving, and let's say that costs, I don't know, $46,000. Your vehicle is the most advanced, incredible vehicle that's ever been made. I mean, it's so far advanced over even the most advanced cars. So I was watching Formula One the other day, which are super advanced cars, and like you have a team that's working with you. And ironically, so much of the information is still relayed by a dude, you know, in the upstairs to the driver. And you know, I'm thinking about how that computer is working and all the variables and high-speed driving stuff. And this car can do it. And it's a Model 3. So you've got a car that's more advanced than a Formula One car and can do incredible things for $46,000.
It's incredible.
It is. And it's coming. And it's coming soon. You know, like whenever somebody says like, oh, it's going to be 10 years until this stuff's really happening. And I'm like, dude, you haven't been in this car.
Well, that's,
you know?
that's the thing of the demo is like it wasn't just on the highway changing lanes by itself, getting off the highway, which it was crazy. But then it would get off the highway, see the stop sign, turn on an oncoming left, read the stoplight, know when the stoplight changed,
like
see the pedestrian, like. You know,
no, totally. Like
it's
I
driving
feel good
itself.
being with you, because when I tell people all this, they don't believe me, and I'm like, and like you were there, you know.
I think that's when it's going to hit people is when your friend down the block is like, oh, like we're getting wasted and my Tesla's driving me all the way because it's fully self-driving.
Oh,
like,
I mean,
I think it'll take one of these
lives,
things of
know?
like, or like. Even when you do enhanced summon and you can just get the car to come to you from the parking lot, like I think these are the real world applications where people will be like, wow, like this is a game changer.
Yeah,
like,
and
this is what the hype
I
is about.
talk to a lot of people, and like what it is like a paradigm shift. So like you know, when you see something, and even if everybody else is looking at it and they don't see it, but you see it as clear as day, like I'm literally like pummeled daily on the internet for believing in Tesla. You know, and like
Me
pummel,
too.
like I'm literally treated like I'm the biggest idiot of all time, you know, and like, you know, it's funny because I was teaching my kid the sticks and stones lessons the other day, and you know, I was like, actually, son, you know, people call me an idiot every day, you know, but I live in the best neighborhood in America, so who gives a crap, you know, and you have a wonderful life, so they can call me an idiot, and you know what, it motivates me actually, because the way I look at it is, okay, they just don't see it. But that's fine, because eventually it happens. And I've been doing this now, it's 25 years this week. 25 years as a professional investor. So if I sucked, I would have been done long ago. Because remember, I did .bomb, okay? I did the financial crisis, okay? So all these, you know, goofballs, you know, who've been trading for 5 years or 7 years in a bull market, who haven't done what I've done. I've traded in the worst market worst decade in American history and made money the whole time, other than when the market went down. But the other 8 years and came out net with good returns. And so when you call me whatever you want to call me. It does, sticks and stones, buddy. I'll come to a party at my house sometime, I'm going to cry all night.
So in your career, have you ever seen a situation where I feel like now Tesla seems so detached from reality and every news story just gets like, it's just unbelievable the amount of like inconsistency and just the gap between the Twitterverse, financial mediaverse, and reality. Right. Like people love these cars. I go to Seattle, I'm in LA, there's Model 3s everywhere. Right. I was here a year ago, they weren't there. Like if that's not a sign that this is a real movement. So I'm just curious, in your career, is this like Netflix in 2011?
No, this is nothing
is this like Apple
I've ever
in 2007?
No, this is nothing. So the internet is a really crazy thing, and the way news worked in the past was very different. Okay, so very, very different. And I was a communications major actually, and had been in the media or studying the media my whole life, and so like. One of the problems is the lack of a filter or editor anymore, where everything is put out there and it's all somewhat equally valid in a way, no matter where the source. And a lot of the traditional medias have cheapened their legitimacy by allowing it on their own platforms too, where you have a lot of great journalism being done, and then some of it is what I call opinion journalism, where the opinion matters. So journalists aren't supposed to have opinions per se. So you would cover a war zone and you might cover the enemy, but you're supposed to go and write the story from a perspective of like, this is the perspective, not this is the enemy and this, that's propaganda, right? Mm-hmm. And so journalism has changed, and now there's not, and I would say 90% of the journalists that I know, and I know many very well now, I think are amazing. Like they're really good at their jobs and they try really hard. And then there's a whole group of them that I know pretty well, and I like them too, but they're opinion journalists and they're writing with their opinion. And I think there should be a disclaimer or something in next to their articles or whatever. And then there's the cheapening of all media because there's so much media. So then what is a real source? So if there's 50 million sources putting stuff out there, it's so hard to tell like what's real,
Yeah. And in the world of clicks, I feel like people are like journalists have become advertising salesmen. They're
it's
incentivized
always been that way. It's always headlines.
But
clicks.
Do you think this internet has made that worse? Because I think that's really the trend that I see, is that like
no, I
there
think
was
it's a
some
more
ethics.
Sinister thing. I think that you're assigning the problem to the participants, not the actual universe. So the problem is the universe of social media. So social media is a horrible, horrible thing, and it's a wonderful utility. So part of it is amazing. Like for my band, I want to tell all these people I'm playing, like social media is the best way to do it. I built a career, a company because of social media, and we have to use it. I'm not saying to get rid of it by any means, but then these guys running it decided, like we're going to affect the way people feel, and we want to addict them to this so that they keep looking so we can sell more ads. And so how do we socially engineer, or how do we get people to have this emotional thing to it by feeding them certain types of information? Like one thing I was thinking, like imagine if Facebook said, okay, today we're going to set the algorithm that if somebody's in a bad mood, we'll send them feeds from the Dalai Lama and things that are really positive. And if somebody's like really positive and stuff and posting all their vacations, maybe we'll send them some like real life posts about like the importance of success and working and discipline or whatever. Whereas like, so it wasn't always like making me feel bad because I'm working and they're all on vacation, even though they're kind of broke and miserable or whatever they're doing, or making you feel bad because you don't feel thin enough or whatever. I mean, God, what? I have not seen a bad-looking person on social media ever, right? Like, what? How is this helping people's self-esteems by any means, right? People are falling off mountainsides, taking pictures,
taking selfies,
talking about who
ridiculous.
You should stop. You're worried about autopilot. People are falling off like into volcanoes and like walking onto like lion dens to video it, I mean, what has happened here? So this is a horrible addiction. I challenge everybody here to try to use your phone less, not to get rid of it. I'm not telling you that the whole thing is bad, but like I literally am trying. I like cut this time down, and you fill up more positive in your life. And so that's the problem. And so they're hurting us. They're hurting our society. Facebook needs to be regulated. They need to take the keys away from Zuckerberg and his evil empire.
What
It's
should they
like
do? I want to build
they
on that.
take the keys away.
Like,
He
does
needs
that
to-
mean split them up? Does that just mean harsh
he
regulations?
should not be in charge. Sandberg needs to go. They need to put in the FCC. You can't just put anything on Channel 4 at 6 p.m. You can't have nudity. You can't say certain words. You shouldn't have live shootings on your platform. That's kind of a bad thing, And so you shut it down. You say, listen, you can't do it this way.
Or you got to be responsible. You got to be a media company and take ownership for your content.
Yeah, but you got billions of people, and so you're relying on algorithms to take down content because ISIS fighters are posting 500 posts a minute, of killings and beheadings. So how do we do that? And you go, well, you just shut off in ISIS-controlled areas. It's pretty easy to do. So if you spend all your time on security, it's not very fun, is it?
Yeah, I actually heard this really interesting theory from Jack Dorsey about Twitter bots, where they would rather figure out who the real people are and tell you who they are than figure out who's fake. It's way easier to. So that's what I feel like the real solution is the Tesla Q thing. You have to put your real name, you have to be verified.
How about a credit card? You got to put a credit card in and pay $1 a month, and everybody would drop off because they wouldn't care, and society would be fixed. And the people who want it would pay $1 a month, and they'd be real people, and that would be that, But it's it goes back into a lot of tech people are just morally blank, They just don't want to get involved with morals at all.
Yeah, I think that's really the issue of Facebook. I just finished the book Zucked by Roger McNamee. Incredible book that talks about this. And it's Zuckerberg had the chance to step in and do the right thing multiple times, but just continuously chose greed, capitalism, earnings, shareholders, profits.
Yeah, party's over, everybody. We got to hurt our stock and we got to be responsible players here. No, he's not going to do it.
But the flip side of tech, which we're into, is Tesla,
right?
Which is actually building the future I want to be a part of. So that's one of my key philosophies in investing: invest in the future you believe in.
Right.
And I feel Tesla is such a 180 difference. They're not building software. They're not it's real assets here in the U.S.
Right.
Made in America,
right.
Cars. I just don't think people realize how unique Tesla gets bunched in with these tech companies, but really they're a totally unique beast and bringing American manufacturing back,
so cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. And actually, what you said, what I wanted to build on is Tesla shouldn't advertise, but they should make content. They should become a content company.
They're working.
They should be making YouTube videos, and they don't have to pay for distribution like previous auto brands. We'll distribute it.
They're working.
The internet will distribute. Yeah, I hope you're right, and I hope you've
I
talked
know
Tesla.
I'm right.
Because if they could put out a video that was here's why our car's the safest, NHTSA has never tested.
I'm telling you, they're working on it.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
pumped. Maybe I could just stop talking then.
Look, I've been fortunate enough that Tesla has let me in to see their factories, these events, to meet every top executive. I have never had such a good understanding of a company in my entire career. Fortunately, I have breakfast and I run into Bob Iger, so I haven't seen him in a while, but we talk here and there, and I'm not scared to go up and talk to him, even though he's got 7 bodyguards / buddies there. And he's a great guy, and I love Disney, and it's our top holding, and I love the company, and he's
your
done
first stock.
Yeah, and I know my whole life, and so I know that company. It's I could be a part of the Disney family, But I still know Tesla better because I've seen the technology up close in a way that I don't think other people have seen. And so I have all these years of experience, and that's the only advantage of getting old, So I try to run as fast and all this stuff, but the one thing you do have is all this experience of seeing stuff in your life. And one of the things that you also get with age is perspective of time, because time goes really fast when you're young in your mind, but it's way faster when you're old. It's when you're old, it's whatever. But your 20s kind of go by. But in reality, especially young people like you, 10 years is kind of goes by quick, And so for me, in my company, I have a 40-year business plan. Okay, I have a 40-year plan because I have young people who work at my firm and I have a succession plan. I have that mapped out already. My career, God willing, I'm healthy, where, who would take over, how that would be, so you think like over time, over long periods of time. And so as these secular changes, this is how I've always invested. So you've got to think it's 2020 coming. So over the next decade, what are the secular changes? What are the things that will be completely different in 2030 than from 2020? Okay? And I hope extremism is one of them. I hope we eradicate it. But when you look at climate, there is no doubt in my mind that not only if we don't address climate, but if we don't do it in this decade in an extreme way, we are doomed. It's not going to be good. I've seen extensive data. My stepfather is a really high-level person in the government and science, and he did the climate change study for Congress. He was in charge of it, and this was a decade ago. And I saw this presentation a decade ago, and it had this chart. It's like exponential, and this was all supposed to take in a time frame. Well, now I talked to my stepfather, and he's like, yeah, push that all. Whatever we were saying 10 years ago is happening way faster. And a lot of it's because of the emerging markets. And,
Thank God China's pushing for
they're
EVs
not.
now.
They're
but they're
not.
pushing for EVs now.
They
I
are,
think
but
that's a good
they're
sign.
part of the problem. They're definitely part of the problem, and not per se in China, but what they're doing in other emerging economies with Belt and Road and using coal-fired plants.
Sure,
they're building new ones with 30-year lifespans. They should be blown up immediately.
But what frustrates me is sure, we can say that about China, but the country I'm least proud of that should be making the most progress and leading the world to clean energy is the United States.
No, thank you. I mean,
it's ridiculous.
Yes,
we're the only country with
nightmare.
North Korea and Syria to back out of the voluntary Paris Accord.
It's
horrible. That was the most embarrassing moment as an American of my life.
Oh, you don't have new ones every day, this week
that
with Trump?
That just really hit me. So
yeah,
it's a
pretty
voluntary agreement. I just think it's ridiculous. So that's why I think Tesla is the most important company on the planet. They're doing more to reverse the effects of climate change or stop it than any entity, charity,
the
government organization. They already have. They've already accelerated the timeline
They're not
of
done.
EVs
They're fighting
by
a war
5 to
right
10
now
years. And
for survival. And that's the part we can't deny, that all these forces that don't care about our future and only care about profit are fighting to kill our company. And that's what this is. This isn't, Tesla's demand problem. There's no freaking demand problem. Everybody needs EVs.
Their sales are up.
They want them.
Their sales were $22 billion last year from 400
They got to
million,
make as many as they can and get them in people's hands all over the world, which is a huge thing what they've accomplished. It's just absurd, the criticism. It's infuriating when you look at those charts. You tried delivering 100,000 EV cars around the world in a quarter when you've never done it before.
They were delivering 100,000 cars a year in 2017.
Right.
Now they're delivering 100,000 cars a quarter. It's
try it.
Demand cliff.
Try it. Right.
It's absurd to me.
It's so hard to do what they've done, and I really do think Elon Musk loves pain. I think he does. He just what's the most challenging, difficult thing I can put myself through, and he does it, and he does it every time. And I do worry because the forces he's attacking are many and well funded.
So one of my mentors actually laid out this spreadsheet of the annual revenue of all these oil companies, just oil companies. If you include Kuwait and these states, it's trillions per year. It was mind-boggling. And they have the big, and that's not counting auto parts companies,
honestly,
auto dealers, the car companies.
Entire industrialized, the industrial era was built on oil.
The petrodollar.
Yeah, it was oil, cars, roads, everything. Our whole economy essentially was built on this when America was built. We had the steam engine. It wasn't so good. And then, Ford Motors and Rockefeller, all these guys worked together. It was they didn't really actually, when they first had oil, it was we're going to use it for cars. It was they were using it for heat and light and stuff, and it was we invented cars, the horseless carriage. So this whole, this is about rebuilding an entire way of thinking into the electric world from the oil world.
Yep. And that being said, I feel one of the things that's most understood about Tesla is the value of Elon Musk. and like how visionary he is and how much he's accomplished, and people somehow the narrative has gotten to that he's a liability. And I'm like, that is, you know what I mean? Like, just
he is a liability.
But
You
he's
know,
also
I'm a
the biggest
liability to
asset.
myself too. You know, and you are too. You know, it's called self-destruction. You know, we're our biggest liabilities to ourselves, our own success. I try to teach people this all the time in my office, you know, about the way your brain works and things that like self-sabotage you and the sort of like things that go back to your childhood that you subconsciously deal with and dealing with being successful. Like most people just hold themselves back from their own success. Like people could all be more successful, but it's the same people are saying, oh, Tesla can't do this, I can't do that. They say it in their own lives, you know, and you could do anything you really want to do. I mean, my brother has proved that. My brother's like a 4-time Ironman. He's insane. Insane what he's accomplished. And this is in his 40s, okay? And like, I honestly try to run 3 miles and I'm like, forget it. I'm done. You know, like I'm in good enough, you know, this is good enough shape. And he goes out and runs a marathon. The other day he ran a marathon to help his friend learn how to run a marathon.
Wow.
Like just to help, you know, like no biggie. You want to go do 26 miles, you know, or whatever. So you can do so much more than what your potential is, like what you think you can do.
Yeah.
And so that Elon is his own worst enemy. He's an enormous asset. And just like every super smart person I've ever known, you don't get all pluses and no minuses.
Yeah.
It just, nothing works that way. So if you get like a lot of super awesome pluses, there's some things in there that are tough.
Yeah.
And that's life, man. I mean, I have them too. We all do.
Yeah. And so building on what you were saying, what kind of advice do you have for like young investors or people building their careers to like maximize that potential?
Well, the first thing is risk. You know, whatever people are telling you you're supposed to be doing is probably not right. And don't do what everybody else is doing. You know, if everybody else is like, oh, it's cannabis now, I'm gonna start a cannabis company right now. It's like, dude, there's like 800 cannabis companies already started with tons of money. Just go work at one of them. You know, there's so much opportunity in this industry. You know, but then your mom calls you up and goes, what do you mean you're working in a cannabis company? All our friends will be upset and whatever. And you're like, Mom, trust me, this is like an awesome business right now. And these guys are legitimate companies. And you know, I'm going to work my way up in this lab and it could be an awesome opportunity. You know, it's like video gaming. Oh my God, what do you mean you work at a video game company, son? Or, you know what I mean? Like, you've got to be willing to take risks, number one. Number two, you got to stick with something. And the same with investing, you know, like, for young people, they it's so easy, and it's not a generational thing. It's just being young, and like you do it for 2-3 years, and it's hard, so you think there's another thing that's easier, and it's not. The easiest thing you can learn in life is nothing is easy. Just get over it, okay? Just get over thinking you're ever going to have it easy, you know? I'm still trying. It's 48 years, and I can't get that year that everything goes right. It's insane. So, you know, stick with something, you know, and learn. Like, don't stop learning. Like, you know, you go to college, I'm done, and now I'm just going to watch TV every night or whatever. Like, force yourself to learn things, you know. So young people can make decisions in their 20s, like saving and investing. Like my firm works with young people. Find a financial advisor. I know a lot of people try to do it, you know, themselves. You know, call us, Gerber Kawasaki. You know, give us a call. We're happy to help you set up your thing. We charge very reasonable fees for young people to get started. But save and invest your money. Use your 401k. You know, I was teaching somebody today about this. Like, your retirement plans are so important. It really doesn't matter whether you own Tesla or not. You know, honestly, if you're not using your IRAs, you're like doing it wrong. You know, it's like, think about a Roth IRA at 25 and you put your $5,000 in and you invest in Tesla or whatever you do, you know, and every year you do that. All that money is tax-free for the rest of your life. Like, you can make decisions now that, like, I was fortunate enough to make because I knew that you look back, like, now it's my 25th anniversary of this, and I'm like, thank God I did that. Like, thank God. Because life gets really hard when you have kids and you want to pay for this and that and go to Disneyland at $150 a ticket and $200 lightsabers and my God. And you're not going to say no, you know? And so it's like, if you save and invest now, like the world is yours. And so it's investing in the markets and in equities and technology in the future. And it's investing in yourself and not being static. Like I work a job. So if you're like doing the same thing every day for like a few years, it's a bad job. You need to switch. You need to find
Robots
a
are
better
coming for sure.
Yeah, and you need to find a better challenge. And if you're not educated, get educated. This whole anti-college movement, I think, is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You need a college degree. Get a college degree. It doesn't matter where you go. I was lucky enough to go to UPenn, and my parents paid for my college, and I didn't have student debt. But if I had to pay and take on that debt, I probably wouldn't have gone because it was so expensive. But if I would have gone to Cal State, wherever, I would have still been successful, I think. So it's like the truth is, it doesn't matter where you really go. You can make yourself successful. But if you don't have a college degree, go get a college degree. Go to school.
Yeah.
Struggle.
And one of the reasons I started Hyperchange, I think is crazy, is they don't teach like finance, investing, taxes in school.
Right.
To me, that's mind-boggling. Like what you're saying is such simple advice. Like if you're like 18 and you just start compounding a couple $1,000s
That's
at
right.
7% per year, by the time you're 30, like you're killing it.
How about 15% a year? Like if you're invested, for example, like we use this like Growth Fund of America. It's an American fund. It's a mutual fund. And you can buy this fund. This fund has done well for as long as the sun has risen. You know what I mean? And of course, there's risk involved and past performance is not indicative of future results. But, you just buy this fund. It's done so well. You own all the major tech companies. You can buy an index fund of tech companies. And that's what I'm saying. You can accept this 7% if you want, or you can invest in technology. If you look at the difference between the Nasdaq's return versus the S&P, you're killing it. Okay, and then you look at the way it's designed. The Nasdaq's a better index. Okay, it's just a better index. So why settle for the 8 to 10% that Wealthfront's given you when you can just buy an index fund of some tech? And people can say, oh, that's so risky or whatever. I'm saying you're dollar cost averaging. You should have some balance in your portfolio. But if you're more weighted to tech, you'll deal with more volatility. But that's your advantage when you're buying every month. And that's exactly, let's say you want to invest in Tesla. You don't want to take a ton of risk right now. Yeah, there's risk in Tesla. Okay, so buy a few shares, what you can afford. Maybe it's a share, it's $200. You buy one. Then next month you buy another one. Maybe it's $220. Oh, it's $220. And you just accumulate over time. But when you look back in a decade, you'll be like, that was the smartest thing I ever did. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's how this works. And so the sooner you start the compounding and investing process, not just in yourself, but in your retirement accounts and other investments, the better you're off you're going to be. And then it gets better and better and better quicker for you. And that's what I realize is most people wait till they're like my age and then they come see me, or later, and they go, oh, I'm making $350 and I have a nice house and I've got $250,000, so I thought I'm doing pretty good. And I'm like, wait, you need like $5 million or $6 million liquid for retirement. Or you're going to have to cut back. You're going to cut back like half. And nobody's going to do that. So he's like, what do you mean? And then I show him the numbers that he's going to have to save, like, let's say $25,000 a month. It's some like crazy number. And they're like, you're crazy. I don't save anything now, And I was like, too late, buddy. It's like, you better sell your company for a lot of money and then, call me and I'll take your $250 and do what I can, And then they don't save any money.
Wow.
So I saved more money when I was younger than I do now. No, that's not true. I make a lot more now, but relative to my expenses, the percentage of my income, I was able to save a lot more money when I was younger.
Awesome. And I kind of want to switch back to Tesla kind of to wrap this up. So what makes you so excited about Tesla? Let's say everything goes right. Like, can you get us pumped up about what the future looks like or why you're excited about it?
Okay, so driving's horrible, like you have traffic that's just, people spend hours a day of their lives, not with their families, not with their children. You have the cost on the economy of this traffic too. So that's one issue. You have the deaths we've talked about, the hardships, the drunk driving. You're talking thousands of people a month die on the roads. So that's a real impact on human life. Injuries in the emergency rooms, the cost of healthcare, all because of car accidents, okay? So the whole concept that we've invented for driving and parking and transportation doesn't work. So we know things like mass transportation work, so they put the subway in Santa Monica, tons of people take it, you just can't argue with it. It's successful, so those people aren't driving. You see like the scooters and all these other ways people are trying, it's mostly junk, but it's better than people driving.
They're trying.
Right?
They're
yeah,
innovating.
exactly. And I still think there's a lot of innovation needs to be done, but I love the idea of people using bikes or other forms than cars. So then when you think about Tesla, and not sort of the autonomous robo-taxi thing, which is nice, but you think about the idea of utility of having so many cars that you don't use all the time. So for me, let's say the weekend, I don't use my car much. So the idea that I could rent my car out or the car could just go work for me.
The Tesla network.
Just the idea that car sharing, where we could cut down the actual amount of cars we need and use and be much more efficient, and then we could share cars, for example, and the cost of owning a car becomes nothing. So you actually can net money by owning a car if you don't drive a lot.
I don't think people have wrapped their head around what Elon's saying.
Well, let's
with
explain.
That.
Let's explain, right?
Well, yeah. So you instead of getting $40,000 for the Model 3 they sell, Model 3 could drive around and create $300,000 in revenue over its
costs
lifetime.
you $150 a week to own the car, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So the payment $500 a month plus $100 a month for insurance, let's say, and that's coming too. It's going to be bundled in with Tesla. So so if you figured out $150 a week, but if you could rent your Tesla out for, let's say, $125 for the day, so you could get, let's say, 2 days a week you rent your car and the other 5 days you drive it. Okay, so now you're making $250 a week renting it, right? And it's costing you $150 a week. So you're making $100 a week owning a car.
And it's driving around itself.
It's
That's
driving
the
around
key part.
itself.
You're not working.
You're not doing it.
Yeah.
Or somebody's it's driving to pick somebody up and then they're using it.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea is there's a utility now of having a car that you're not using. Then you have more advantage to be not driving too, because you'll make more money if you're smart about the way you use your transportation than if you're driving around all the time. So it's almost like you're paying per mile versus and think about insurance. Like when you buy auto insurance, it's based off everybody in your zip code and how bad they drive, which is horrible. So it's like we're all paying for all these bad drivers, but you might not have crashed your entire life, you know? And so like, why isn't insurance just prorated to my actual driving experience? So if everything is just geared to my actual driving, I mean, Tesla will know if you're driving 85 at 4 a.m, leaving, like a place of ill repute, you know what I mean? And so they'll be like, oh, he should cost more, or maybe we'll just make the car drive slower because he's being an idiot and it's 4 a.m. And so the 85 all of a sudden starts to be 60, and then they take over the car because you're weaving and the car is tired of warning you, and then the car just drives you home. So you have economic advantages, you have societal advantages, you have costs across the entire spectrum of our economy that are then alleviated, and then the opportunity cost of people being more efficient with that time, whether it's more love or more work or whatever. So if you think about the city of the future and you can go, oh, it's like the Jetsons or whatever, think about when Star Trek started, okay? And when Star Trek started, they had like all these like fake phones, like they flipped open, and they had all these gadgets. And when we were kids, we thought that was high tech, right? When you look at that stuff today, it's junk. You're like, Star Trek, like, yeah, look at my phone today. It's like way better than the Star Trek phone, And so it's like, what I was watching the old Star Wars the other day too, and I was like, oh my God, it's like Yoda's a rubber doll, It's like,
yeah, it looks so bad now.
It's funny, and it's like now it would be like the CGI awesome Yoda, So Tesla's going to be this Jetson City car, and it's going to be a global thing, as everybody needs EVs, everybody wants efficiency, and everybody's dying with choking traffic. So how do we alleviate these things? And Tesla's a solution for that, and hence Boring Company too, which is really just an offshoot of the same attempt to solve these big issues that cities face.
And that's the traffic autonomy piece, I guess. What gets you excited about like the electric piece, like battery electric cars, maybe like the semi? Or just the
I just think it's no-brainer that you're switching over all these cars to electric. Electric cars
that's
are
already
better.
A foregone
conclusion.
conclusion.
I don't think that's a debate. You want to debate about it? I mean, there's no debate. Okay, I've been
I want to hear your side of the debate.
No, I mean, the EV side is very simple. Everything will be EV. It's just Tesla's forcing everybody to do it. I think there was some alliance talk today because all the car companies don't want to like lose money to do this. So they're like trying to band together and figure out how to do what Tesla's done and scale.
Yeah,
And
they're trying to copy Tesla as fast as they can.
Yeah, because they didn't really have an incentive to lose their profit margin just to make some new technology. Like, why would they do that? So now they're well behind, and society's saying we want these EVs, and governments are saying it, and so the EV, so the semi is phenomenal. Like, this is such an easy solution. It's such a horrible part of the pollution piece, but also from an autonomy perspective, truck drivers have tough lives.
Oh, it's
it will
brutal.
make their life way better, and you'll still have drivers, and their life will be way better. It'll be like pilots today on planes. They'll sit there and monitor the systems.
And you'll have the platooning where three trucks drive behind each other.
The efficiency, and you think about our society. We've been buying a lot of these logistics warehouse companies, and Blackstone is one of just bought a big one in Prologis, because the world is about delivery and logistics and moving stuff from back and forth. So that's a huge piece. The pickup truck is a huge piece. Eventually, the Model Y is a huge piece forward in getting a car that I think serves a little bit more utility too. So to me, Tesla's so far ahead here. The question is, can they scale all their ideas within the financial constraints that they have,
well put,
in the time frames that Elon's pushing for, and get the results in the time frames that need to happen to make sure that the grand master plan happens at this warp speed? Mm-hmm. So there is no other company in the world that has a timeline of innovation in the time period that Tesla has. But with that comes enormous amounts of capital needing to be used. And
scrutiny and hate and controversy.
Irrelevant
the
of
disruption.
That.
Yeah.
If you go to the Tesla factory, nobody's paying attention to that.
True.
So it doesn't matter. All that matters is, can they afford to do it, and can they make sure? Like, it could be catastrophic if there was some big problem, let's say with the Model 3 software, all of a sudden, and all the cars stop driving or something. Even if it was for a day, it would be like, think about the level of perfection they have to operate under from the scrutiny that they're under. And so it's a very difficult thing what he's trying to do. And, I wish him all the luck and success. He's fighting forces, sabotage, whatever, We
love you, Elon.
But what I hope for, and I think about this a lot, is a strategic partner. I don't want Tesla to be bought out, and I think shareholders want to stay as shareholders, but some smart companies should be, and I don't know what industry, tech or auto, should be saying, here's like a $5 billion investment, straight into the company. And, we want this timeline to continue, and we believe in it. And maybe Tesla should have been a private company, and it would have helped make this easier on everybody. But I think if there was sort of this thing, like, we know this, instead of like, I'm always riding the car at 110 miles per hour, like Elon style, I think that would be beneficial for Tesla. I just don't know if that's going to happen. I think because the stock's down, the likelihood is higher now that there'll be a more opportunistic partner that come in. And I think this moment is it might be a short-lived moment. So a strategic partner better move quickly before somebody else moves or whatever. I think
or Tesla's one good quarter in the stock.
Yeah, well, I also think their impending demise is greatly exaggerated, especially after the capital raise. So I think the capital raise put a lot of that to rest. And, and thank you, Elon, so much for doing that at the perfect time before the market cratered. It was like the day before the market cratered. So he got a much better deal than he would have gotten this month. I mean, substantially. So, great move he did there, and it brought me a lot of comfort, because now they've got $5 billion on the books, and so they got to pay off some stuff, and that gets them down to $4 billion. And then they lose. My numbers have them close to 90,000 cars right now. I see scenarios they can get over 90. It's hard to call what sales of the S and X are. But I don't care if they're a little bit short, because they're still going to be in the high 80s, and they'll probably lose a little bit of money this quarter, 100 million, 200 million. And then I think they get to 100,000 cars. And that's really I think their break even's like 91 or 92,000 cars, but the S and X are an important component of that profit margin because it's a higher margin for them.
Totally.
And so the S and X issue needs to be dealt with, and they kind of dealt with it this quarter. We were talking about a body redesign, but it was like really hard to think of a better body for it, you know. So I think this is a difficult thing for Tesla as far as what you do with that. And they, you know, so adding range, adding performance is great. So I'm not sure where they go, you know, maybe make the interior even nicer, you know, stuff like that. But I think that they can maintain 80 to 100,000 car demand a year in the S and X, and then get up to the, you know, numbers on the you know, total output of 450 to 500,000 out of Fremont,
And then start making money.
and then China, baby, and that is the awesome part of the story. I mean, the China factory is moving like hyper speed. Chinese love the brand. The orders are off the charts. They you know, they're pumped. They want this car, and so if they can get this factory going, they're going to sell every car in China that they can make, and then they go to 1 million cars. So if they can do that in a year, like really get China going in a year, at Model Y, boy, you know, this seems like an incredible opportunity right now.
Awesome. On that note, Ross, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Do you have any last words of wisdom for the hyperchangers, or where they can find you online?
Yeah, you can find me at Gerber Kawasaki or gerberkawasaki.com. Follow us on Twitter, please. Yeah, you know, I think one of the things is like, don't let this stuff get you down. If you're on the internet a lot, it affects your emotions, and they're trying to affect your emotions and get you to believe something that isn't true. And so get off Twitter, or, you know, you do your Twitter time and then just get off of it. Don't answer all these people. Don't waste your time, because it's just, that's part of the game. Distract, you know, and get you off the real message, which this change needs to happen. We need to make the world a better place for our kids, my kids, for you guys, for me. When I retire, I want to sit on real beaches and enjoy my time and not have like hurricanes wipe me out and stuff like almost did the last time I was in Hawaii. And, you know, that's I think what's important. So get off the internet, enjoy your life, and try to make a difference. We got an election coming up, and we must get change. And this is our world. It's the young people's world now. But young people have got to mobilize and get out there in the next year to make change, because it is your life now, and it will affect you. So that's my advice.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ross. Loved it.
Yeah. Thank
Peace.
you. Thanks for having me.